to episode 100 Route. The Route is a glorified coffee chat and podcast form that takes you from A to B with a new guest every episode. As always, I'm your host, Christopher Nascimento, and let's get started. Before we begin, a couple things to cover as per usual. First, if you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast, follow the podcast, find it wherever available. It's available on, I believe, 10 audio platforms. So Google, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and a few other smaller ones as well. And if you prefer video podcasts, we're available on YouTube for full episodes as well. And then you can simply search The Route Podcast or our username at The Route Cast. So that's The Route CAST. And that's our same social handle for all platforms. So Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all those good things there. And then that's where you'll be able to find out, hey, what's that episode that week, or clips from episodes that you might want to tune into. So check us out there at The Routecast. And while you're doing that, maybe something that's more important, especially for this podcast in regards to what we're talking about, is LinkedIn. So we're also on LinkedIn, The Routecast. That way, if you want to grow your network, expand it, start it, check us out there, connect with myself, guests, or like-minded individuals, and you'd be able to kind of go from there. So check us out on all platforms. And with that now said, we can get into today's guests. I'd now like to welcome two people who are shaking up the world of ice cream with delicious, healthy, and nutritious alternatives, co-founders at Nanashake, Tamara and Yasin. Welcome to The Route. How's it going?
Good.
It's going
Yeah, I'm
great. We're glad
fantastic.
we've been looking forward to this, and yeah, we're glad that we're doing it.
Absolutely. And I think as we were just talking before in our previous call as well, and there's little tidbits that you guys start to share, like, oh, let's keep for the podcast. So I guess with that said, you might be maybe taking me through the route. So how did it begin and how do we get to where we are today?
Awesome. Well, so we immigrated to Canada in 2014. Previously, we were living in Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates. And immigrating to Canada has always been a dream for me. Personally, I went to university at McGill. I went to McGill in Montreal, and ever since I went there, I said to myself, one day I'm going to come back and live in Canada. And so when Tamara and I met and things started getting serious between us, I was like, listen, you got to know, one day I am planning on moving back, to Canada. And so she's like, okay, I'm game with that. And so, we got married in 2005. And then 2014, 9 years later, we immigrated to Canada with our two kids. And yeah, I initially got started working at Global News as marketing manager, as well as ET Canada. And I did that for about a year. During that time, we had always, and I think a lot of people, not just us, we had always been, oh, we'd be great to,
Dreaming.
yeah, to start a business. It would be great to be business owners, start a business. And so, one day, do you wanna get into this? You tell this part of the story a lot better than I do.
So you mentioned when we moved here, we moved with our kids at that time. Rafa was less than 5 years old, and Yazan was like less than 3 years old. Even less, he was a year and a half actually. So when we moved here, it was beautiful, but I took a break from my career. Previously, I was a banker for more than 11 years. I wanted to focus my energy on my kids, especially our son, when he was born, he had severe asthma, and moving to a new country with no one that we know, it was a little bit of challenge. So say about Yazan's story or your story first?
Yeah, I mean, whichever. Just I think they both, kind of
As I told you, like when we moved here, our son, he was 18 months old. So, and when with severe asthma, every now and then we used to go to the hospital, and the hospital visits, after we're done, he wants some treat. But because of his situation, and mainly he was craving always ice cream. But because of his condition, we couldn't give him the conventional ice cream because of the dairy. And then we looked into the non-dairy. It wasn't any healthier options as well because of the ingredients. most of them, yet till date, the refined sugar is one of their top three ingredients. So Yazid looked at me one time and he is like, "Listen, I'm into my healthy path. I want to take care of my health and Yazid's situation as well. Can you make us a healthy ice cream?" Because Yazid is like obsessed with ice cream. So I looked at him. I'm like, healthy and ice cream together in the same sentence, like it doesn't work. So I started looking. That was like more than 10 years. So I started looking and searching up. I couldn't find like healthy ice cream, but what I found at that time was ice cream recipes. Like basically, you get bananas, you wait until they are ripen, you peel them, you freeze them for at least a day, and then you blend them. It's ice cream. So then I started making that, and then I start tweaking and adding some nuts and fruits into it. And we created the base of the ice cream.
And like, so I was a marketing background, and I like, she would make them with, she would start adding her own, make her own recipes, add her own ingredients to them. And I was like, look, this tastes great. And our friends would come over and she would make it for our friends, and our friends would be like, you guys should start selling this. And I'm a marketing background, so I was like, you know what, let's do. So we organized a couple of focus groups, and we invited people from different, backgrounds. We set it up and we had them try it, and we got their feedback, and the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. We did get some, tips on, improving the texture, making it less watery, and so forth. And so we looked at each other. We're like, look, we've always wanted to start a business, and there's clearly a gap in the market. The reason she started making these recipes at home is we couldn't find a product on the shelf to buy, whether dairy or non-dairy. They all always have added sweeteners or sugars as one of the top two ingredients. And so, realizing there was a gap, we got that great feedback. We jumped, full in, and I stopped, I stopped working in my marketing job and went full time into starting Nanashake.
Yep.
And we opened the store. Nanashake initially started as a scoop surf shop off the corner of Shepherd and Young. We opened our doors on the 14th of March, 2016. And at the time, it was Toronto's only completely vegan ice cream parlor. So you had ice cream parlors that had vegan options, but our parlor was completely vegan. That's, everything we served was plant-based. And, out of opportune timing, it was around the same time that veganism was really taking off. People were really, it was garnering interest. Yeah, more people wanted to know about it. And so we had this influx of customers come into the store. They loved it. And then, they started asking us to make our products available at more locations. They said, we want to be able to take this home with us. We want to be able to buy it from other places. And so 3 years later, in 20, started dabbling with consumer packaged goods. We basically ordered some packaging off Uline, slapped some stickers on it, and we started approaching local stores with our products. Got a lot of no's, but eventually some of them started taking it. And at the time, I think we got into about 20 stores maybe. And then COVID hit, and with the retail closures and restrictions, the mandatory closures, and we were an ice cream store in Toronto, so we were really only doing great business 4 or 5 months a year, right? So with the closures, it became really hard to maintain the ice cream store, the brick and mortar store. And so when our lease ran out January 2022, we didn't renew it, and we decided to pivot fully into consumer packaged goods. And yeah, so we went from being, a scoop surf shop into consumer packaged goods. With our products, Nana Pops are now available at more than 600 stores across 6 provinces in Canada.
Yeah, that's amazing. Like I said, I take notes during this, and there's so many questions I already have that I have so many things I want to dive into. And if you're all right with it, I like going from the start, and then we'll work our way back to where we are today. So I guess maybe going back to, I think you're saying when you guys came to Canada, or maybe when you first got married. Not sure when exactly, but you said, hey, like we always dreamed of starting a business. Was this the first business you guys started, or were there other ones that you had to maybe learn from and maybe fail, or maybe they're successful? What was that process like?
You know what? It's actually funny. This is a really interesting question, because this was around 3 years after we got married in 2018. We stumbled. So we were traveling. We were traveling for vacation. We were in LA, and we went to Nobu. Nobu. And for dessert, they had this thing. It's called mochi ice cream. And we had it, and it was like Tamara and I were just like, "Oh my god, this is the best thing
We ate
we've."
like five each.
Yeah, we were like, "This is the best thing we've ever tasted." It's literally it's like it's a westernized version of a traditionally Asian dessert, which is mochi. So it's like rice pudding, and inside there's ice cream. And so when we went back to Abu Dhabi, it just stuck with me. This is so good. I've never, had it before. Nobody has, has tried it as well, right?
Yes, everyone over there, and nobody knew about it.
And so I reached out to the owner, the manufacturer who's based in Hawaii. And I was like, listen, we've tried your product. It's incredible. We live in Abu Dhabi. It's a warm climate. How about we start selling your products here? And so he sent us initially samples, and we actually started setting up for the business, and then, for several reasons, it didn't really work out for us to start that business over there. We, like he was looking for more commitments than we were able to give it. And so that kind of fizzled out, even though we had already started meeting hotels and so then when we immigrated, this wasn't in the back of our head. We never thought, oh, you know what? We wanted to start this ice cream business that never worked out. Let's do another one. No. But now that you ask, it just kind of, I make the connection that, yeah, we actually tried to start another ice cream business, not our own ice cream, selling somebody else's ice cream, but it didn't work out. And so I guess it was always destined for us to make our own
ice cream.
Yeah.
That's kind of funny how that works out, because I've done this over 170 plus episodes now, and as people kind of go through their route, it's funny the connection that maybe some of their different experiences have, and I think when they take a step back and look at it, they're like, oh, like this kind of flowed into it perfectly, where this experience added up with this one, and so on and so forth. So that's pretty cool. And then
say honestly, you asking that, I think this is the first time that we've made that connection. Like I've never spoken about it certainly ever before in relation to our business. So yeah, that was a great question.
Yeah, thank you. That's why I like to do it this format, because I find it just brings up so many stories. And I guess through that too, I think as you're sharing that story, it's funny because yesterday I was watching a video on what makes like a great business. Like, what are the like three things, I think it was. And one of the things they touched on was people look for founders that had a niche problem they wanted to solve that was taking place in their own life. And similar to, I guess, your experience where you had that, so it was a real problem that you wanted to solve for your, let's say, your own lifestyle. And then as it kind of developed, you're like, oh, like there's, let's say, some legs to this. So it started to take a life of its own. Was there any maybe other, like, did it just happen always organically, or did someone come to you guys initially and say, hey, like, you guys should start to sell this? Or how did that initial, let's say, moment take place? You're like, hey, like there's something here.
Yazeed was walking around and having a nano pop, because I used to make nano pop. It's easier for me. It's for the kids. Before we opened the store, and Yazeed, I remember, like, he held the stick and he's like, we should open the business. And I looked at him, I'm like, Yazeed, like, who's gonna like a banana-based ice cream? And he's like, believe me, like, there are lots of people, they might needs this. And then, like, because of his marketing, I remember it was 2 a.m. He opened his laptop and he started doing his research about diabetes, about kids, and about, it was like a moment I will never forget, for sure.
Yeah, it was, like you said, this was primarily us, solving an issue that we had. We wanted to give our son ice cream, but we couldn't find any varieties to give him. I love ice cream, love the way it tastes going in, hate what happens to me afterwards. There's always that sugar rush, oh, I had too much, and oh, I wish I didn't have. And I just said to myself, I was like, what if you could actually have ice cream where it leaves you feeling good afterwards? So this was primarily our focus. And then that, like Tamara said, I was like, because of my marketing background, I started doing a bit of research, and we realized, like, one in four Canadians is diabetic or pre-diabetic, and added sugar is one of the contributors to that issue, is because there's so much added sugars in the foods that we buy that we're even sometimes unaware of. It really contributes to that. And so I was like, look, we haven't been able to find a product on the shelves that satisfies our problem. It looks like there's a bigger problem in our community where, I'm sure other members would be open to finding healthier options. And we've always wanted to start a business. Let's, if we're going to do this. At the time, I was so mid 30s, right? We were like, I was in my mid 30s. Tamara was a little bit younger. I was like, look, if we're going to ever start a business, this is the time to do it. So we just kind of, jumped in all in and went for it.
And I guess to build on that, when you guys, dove straight into it, was there different ideas of how it would develop? Like, was it always maybe the ice cream parlor, or did you guys think initially about maybe selling it as a consumer packaged good, or what was that thought process like? Like, what was the first version of it in your mind?
So, like, our vision was to open Nanashake. Like, we dreamt about having multiple locations in different areas, because when we opened the store, we used to have customers coming from Aurora, from Muskoka, from Hamilton, and like they asked for our product. We have even customers, they called us from Vancouver asking about our product at that time. And we were like, okay, maybe this is the route that we want to take. But like, God has his own plans about us for our business, especially when COVID happened. COVID, like, it's real. Although sometimes you think it was like long time ago, but it was real. Like, it was a huge wake up call for us. We looked into it. We're like, retail, if there is any shake in the if there is any shake up in the market, retail is one of the first thing is gonna hit. So we start looking, and plus the customers start asking us, where can we buy your product from groceries? That's when it hit us like, okay, we have to switch and adapt with what consumers are looking for. They are looking to buy our product from their local grocery and store them in their freezer to have it whenever they want, and for during the breakfast, after a workout, or at night, wherever they want. It's not just they have to drive to that location and have it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I guess, sorry, that pivot kind of came, if I'm not mistaken, you were saying like in 2019, you guys were starting to look into it. And I think you were saying you're looking at like Uline boxes and using stickers. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, literally, we like at the time, we didn't really have much by way of resources. Today, if you're founding a food business, man, like there's literally limitless resources. But at the time, it was still new, and so we didn't really know what would it take. Like, food safety. Like, we didn't know anything about food safety, and then we realized that you have to, in order. So if you're selling to a local grocery, they might be more open to taking your product if it's made at home. But if you want to get into a Sobeys or, a Longo's or a Metro, if you want to get into one of the large retailers, they've got very strict food safety requirements. And, so we had to basically learn all of that as we went. We had no idea. That's why I say we ordered some packaging off Uline, put some stickers on it. That's how naive we were. We thought, just put it in a bag, put a sticker on, and people are going to buy it. And that's not how it works. Once you go into a supermarket or a store, the difference is when people came to Nanashake, the store, they were coming, with the intention to buy our product. So they were already looking for it. But now you're in a store, you're in the freezer, and there's 50 other brands there. All of a sudden, it's okay. I'm comparing, first of all, initial presentation. Does it look good? Does it jump out at me? What's the value offering? What are the ingredients? Is it priced properly? I mean, we went in because we were manufacturing at the store. Tamara was doing literally, she was making every bar by hand. So it was really expensive for us to sell into stores. So we were really naive going into it, and we had to learn our way. And the first obstacle we had was that food safety, because to get the food safety certification, you have to have a manufacturing facility. We had a 300 square foot store in a food court. So, but you know what we did? We because we were so passionate about this business and what we do, we actually got we got our store inside the food court food safety certified. And we'll never forget this. It took us about 6 months, and every single weekend, Saturday, Sunday, we would bring the kids to the food court for 8 hours because we were so busy setting up the store. We had to, the way we stored our items had to change, the way that the flow happened through our store, production, packaging, where do you ship from? So in order to meet all of those requirements, we had to spend a lot of time. So it took us about 6 months, but we got food safety certified at our store inside the food court. And for the first 2 years, we were manufacturing and shipping out of our store in the food court to supermarkets and stores. And look, we're selling ice cream. Okay, so when you're delivering to a supermarket and it's frozen, they're gonna take out their temp gun, and if it's not below 18 degrees, they'll reject it. So because this is one of the food safety requirements, is you want to make sure the ice cream hasn't melted on the way. And so back of our SUV, I had to get dry ice, put in all the items, put the dry ice. And because it was an SUV, I didn't have that much space. I would put in, again, U-line corrugate cases flat in the car, and then when I get to the store, I would assemble it, tape it, put in the items, tape it. Because it was dry ice. Dry ice keeps things at like -30, -40 degrees, and sure enough, when I would go in to deliver it, the guy would check it with his guys, like, okay, this is good to go, and he would take it in. So, we really hustled our way through this and learned as we, as we progressed into transitioning from retail into consumer packaged goods.
Yeah, that's such a cool story. And I guess to like develop on that, right? So let's say someone's listening and let's say they're trying to start a business that's in the food space as well. And you're saying how you're coming over, there's different hurdles. You're starting with having your own packaging and then learning about all these, different measures you need to take into consideration. How did you guys learn about like the evolution of what you need to take it to the next step? Was it simply by trial by fire? Did you have people referencing you in the food space of, hey, this is what you need to do, this is how you can do it? Or was it simply your own research as well?
So it was mostly trial by fire. So like I said, we wanted to get into the stores. Well, what do you need? You need packaging and stickers. So we got that and we went to the stores. And then when we went to the stores, they're like, oh no, you need food safety. Oh, so we went back and we got the food safety. And then we got the food safety and they're like, oh, you need to deliver and it needs to. So it was really trial by fire. But what I would say is today, there's incredible resources, especially for people who want to start food businesses. And what we would recommend is, if you're going to start a food business, there are multiple incubators and accelerators that you can go to. So there's the Y Space Food Accelerator program, which we went into even though we were further ahead in the process, but we were like, you know what, let's go back to the drawing board. So we were part of Y Space. There's the Venture Park Lab Accelerator. Really, there's quite a few options. Those I think are the two ones that come to mind right now. But you can and we would advise any food founder, before they do anything, go and participate, in one of these incubators, because what they do is incredible. That, like, on a weekly basis. So first thing, they'll touch on marketing. What do you need to know about marketing for food? And then they'll go into packaging. What do you need? And they'll introduce you to people in that field that you can reach out to afterwards. Then it goes into food safety, and they'll tell you all about that. And then it goes into distribution. And so they cover all the. So really, that's what I would recommend. I mean, we did a trial by fire because we had to, but that's not how we would recommend it for somebody else, because there are honestly great resources that people can draw upon.
That's great that you shared that, because I'm sure that's going to help people listening. And then in addition to that, I think one of the next evolutions you guys then had was getting to, I think you said 600 plus stores. What does that process look like? Was it leveraging the incubators? Was it just kind of slowly building on each store? How does that look?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was. We first started getting into. So let's take one retailer as an example. Sobeys. Sobeys was the first national retailer to take our products in. So what we did is we got in to about 18 to 20 stores, and one of one of the mistakes that food founders make is if they go into too many stores, you're very excited. You're like, I've got a great product. I want to get it on shelf. And you get into like 200 or 300 stores. Problem is, once you get into the store, it is, your responsibility doesn't stop there. Delivering the product, once you've delivered your product and it's on shelf, if it's not moving, if it's not selling quickly enough, then it won't stay on shelf. And so one of the things that we learned early on is, stick to these 18 to 20 stores. And what we would do is we would go in and do demos. And we take, why don't you talk about that? Because
we used to take the kids every Saturday, Sunday to do demos for 4 hours. All of us, the four of us, winter, summer, break, whatever, like we always used to go there. And from there, we used to give to build, first we built a great relationship with the staff, we sampled them, and we started building relationship with the consumer that they go to these retailers. That was a huge thing that happened to us. From there, we start expecting till today, until tomorrow, we're gonna still doing demos. I highly recommend to do demos. It's not just, doing demos, it's to go and sell your product. When you do demos, you build a relationship with the buyer. You build relationship with the consumers that they go to this retail. You can't imagine the amount of people they look at me that you're like, you're the founder? Really? And you're sampling us? Tell us about your story. Like that by itself, it gives you my feeling that you want to do more. You want to meet more people. I highly recommend that.
Yeah, really, we just go and do demos and demos and demos and build relationships with the staff, get to know the customers. They'll try the product, they hear our story, they like it. And what we did was we started showing the stores that, look, initially we were selling 2 units a week. Now we're selling, after the demos, it bumped up to 3.5. Now it went to 4. And as we drove that velocity up, and then the stores, the stores themselves will start recommending the product to other stores because they talk to each other, right? And so this has been our strategy. Really, you focus on, and I read this on, a fellow food founder had posted about this, is grow where you're planted. So delivering to that store is just you've basically sown the seed, right? But then that you need that to grow into something bigger. And so that's what we did. We focused on growing our sales where we are, and then as we saw that we got to those higher sales, then we started approaching more and more stores. So Sobeys is an example. We started 18 to 20 stores. That was in 2019. And now we're in 2024. So 5 years later, I think our latest tally, we're in about 160 stores, just with that banner, and nationally across Canada. So in Ontario, in BC, in Saskatchewan, in Manitoba. So we're like nationally, across Canada, we're listed at more stores than those retails. And I think this is something, just furthering to Tamara's point about the demos. And this is something I think your listeners will appreciate, is you had recently a guest on your podcast, Adam Booth. And so Adam, actually, I met Adam at a demo. My son and I were doing a demo at Nature's Emporium, and this gentleman shows up with his daughter. He's like, what is this? I'm like, it's a smoothie on a stick. He tastes it, like, I love this. His daughter loves it. And he just asked me, he goes, he asked me, how are you guys, funding this business? And I said, look, it's basically our savings plus family and friends. He asked me, are you, have you guys, been raising? And I said, well, funnily enough, you asked, we're planning on raising funding. And, him and I, he gave me his contacts. I kept in touch with him. I kept him updated on our growth and our plans. And he eventually ended up becoming our lead investor. When we actually went and we raised funding, he became our lead investor, along with a syndicate of other angel investors came in and they invested in Nanashake. So, like, really, demos, there is nothing more valuable than you can do than to go into a store and demo your product. Even though it's hard, it is. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you it's very hard. Like, it's, first of all, the demo's 4 hours. It usually takes you an hour to get there, an hour to come back. That's 6 hours, right? You're doing a demo at one store. And you could go and the weather could act out and people don't show up to the store. So it's hard. Like 6 hours, one store demo is hard, but there's nothing more valuable that a food business owner can do than to commit to doing those demos. Because when you're in the store, first of all, you'll see what the traffic patterns are. You'll see where customers, so we're selling ice cream. We'd set up our table by the ice cream freezers and we'd look. So what's the customer journey going into the store? So they go into the store, they look at a few brands, they look at ours, they pick up our box, they put it back down, and then they walk away. So we'd go up to them and say, wait, like, do you mind asking you, why did you not end up buying the product? And some of our most valuable insights we got from doing that. So a customer would say, oh, you know what? It looks great, but it's too expensive. I can't afford this. So that was an insight we got, that we needed to do something about the price. Another customer would say, oh, you know what? It's only got 3 bars. There's 4 in our family. So if I buy a box, one of us isn't going to have ice cream. And we're like, so we need to account for, 4 people in the household. And so a lot of the great insights that we got that helped us upgrade and refine our product came from being in the store and seeing how customers behaved and what the traffic patterns were. And yes, you know what? Some demos are very hard. People don't want to try your product. Nobody buys it. You get demotivated. But look, it's part of it. You have to go through that, right? To get to, those greener, what do they
Grass.
say? Yeah, greener landscapes. You have to go through that. And so, yeah, I'm just doubling down on what Tamara said. Like, as a food founder, if you have your products in stores, spend a lot of your time inside the stores.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. And so much things that you said there, like, or I'm sure great insights, whether to take away in a food business or even other ones as well. Like I think the point you said where, what grow where you are planting, I think it was you said. I think that's a great
Yeah.
point. And then one of the last questions I have before we go to our 2 wrap-up questions I like to ask every guest is, I think before we began recording, you were telling me about, I was telling you about my experience at Whole Foods when I went to go purchase, and you guys said you're now getting, more flavors, I guess, more different types of flavors in that store. What's the journey looking like now? Like, what's Nanashake up to in present day? What does it look like for maybe 2025 as well?
You know what? You need to tell them, because you asked a great question. Whole Foods is a special retailer. Why don't you tell them about, like, our journey with Whole Foods?
So Whole Foods always been a special retailer for one reason, because when we opened our store, across the street was Whole Foods Shepherd and Young, and we used to get the bananas from them.
From that store, we'd buy our bananas to make the ice cream from that store.
So every time Yazeed goes to there, get 5 or 10 boxes from there on the trolley, we used to look at the freezer and we're like, Yazeed, do you imagine one day we're gonna be here in Whole Foods? And he always be like, dream big, you never know. So it took us 4 years after we started dabbling into the CPG, applied 4 years to Whole Food, and every time they said no to us. So finally last year, they said, last year? 2 years ago.
No, it was actually 2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago, they said yes to us. And you can't imagine, we were so happy. So when they launched our product, they launched with 2 flavors. And now we're going to be extending all the lineup starting April.
Yeah.
April of 2025.
And this just really feeds into that point, is get listed into the store. Show them you're committed to this brand. Show them that you're going to support it. You're going to make sure the sales. So we would just demo, drive the sales up. And at the end of the year, they saw the sales were up. And then when it was time to review their category again, we submitted the 3 other flavors and they accepted them. And now in April of 2025, we will, you'll see a full shelf of Nana Pops with all five SKUs on the shelf. So again, getting listed is just the first step. You need to go in there, make a good impression, show them that this is a product that customers are looking for, that it's at a price that customers are willing to pay for, that it has the benefits and the differentiators that customers are looking for. And if all those elements come together, retailers are more than happy to continue working with you. At the end of the day, they want a win-win partnership where they're moving products off shelf, and so are you.
Yeah, that's a great story. It's so cool. Like that's what I was saying earlier about those full circle moments. It's so funny how like as you speak to more and more people, like you just see the different connections that it almost seems like the story people share is always meant to be in regards to how things work out. So
You're
very
right.
cool.
You're right. In hindsight, it's always, like as you're going through it, you don't see those connections, but in hindsight, you're like, so this was all part of like
The journey.
the journey. Yeah.
For sure. I'm a big believer in that where sometimes, things happen like, oh, this is too bad, but it's probably just one step closer to the next thing. So that's a great way to put it. And then I have two questions I like to ask every guest at the end of the podcast. So I've been doing this 100, I think 77 is this one. And I've said it 177 times. I want to live until I'm 103, being on a rocking chair, thinking about all the cool things I did in my career. So if I put both of you in that situation, you're 103, you're on a rocking chair together, thinking about all the things you've done in your career so far in relation to Nanashake. What's maybe one story that's taken place so far that you'd be like, wow, I can't believe that happened in this brand that we've developed?
So yeah, that's a good one. You should. That's a good one.
You should say
No,
because it
you should.
happened with you.
No, but
So one of the biggest achievement, let's say, or one of the biggest stories that like every day yesterday we were talking about it with our daughter, Metro, how we entered Metro. So, like we mentioned that when we started Nana Shake, Rafa, our daughter, she was almost 5 years old, and our son, Yazan, he was less than 2 years. So even when we used to go to the store, to farmer market, to demos, to sometimes even Yazid, if he needs to drop off some product to the stores, we used to take the kids with us because we don't have any family or support to support us with the kids. So they learned everything. Like if you talk to them, they know strategy. They know everything about Nana Shake, how we started it, how we grow it, how we build relationship. Like they inhaled it. So in 2022, we were at Vancouver CHFA show in April. And of course, because like it was far away, the kids, they always with us. So they skipped school. They were happy. So, and they came and joined us to attend the show. And why? Like literally, it was the last few hours of the show. We were like standing, and this gentleman came to us to start talking to Yazeed, and Yazeed, he is like, let me pitch you the product. And Rafa at that time, she was 10 years, 9 years,
2012.
12 years old.
She was 11.
11 years
11
old.
turning 12.
So she was standing next to him, and she was like, listening to Yazeed and like, shaking her head. So, what's his name? Title.
It was Charles Buhager, the health and wellness category manager at Metro Ontario.
So he looked at Yazeed. He's like, you told me that it's a family-run business. Can you please pause? I want her to pitch it for me. And she took over and she started talking about it without being afraid, or just she spoke about the journey, the product, and what's good about it. So he looked at Yazeed and he's like, if I list this product, it's because of her, not because of you. A year and a half later, on Canada's day, July 1st, 23, Yazeed at night, he received an email from Mr. Charles, and he told him, I promised you that if I list the product because of your daughter, so please tell your daughter that the first 2 SKUs will be listed next month. So that, for us, it's everything.
Yeah, our daughter essentially got us into one of the top 3 food retailers in Canada. And like for us, that was just, even when every time we say the story, we just get goosebumps.
Yeah.
Because it's incredible. They grew up in the business, like Tamara said, inhaling the business, listening to us, and they got to the point where they themselves now were supporting us in growing and scaling the business.
Yeah, that's so cool. And that's like the perfect definition of a family-run business, right?
Yes.
So that's very funny.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. 100%.
So we went into the future thinking about, you're 103, what's one story that would stick out? The other question I then have is now going back in time. So I typically like asking people, if you go back in time, speak to a younger version of yourself and share one piece of advice that you've now learned, what would that be? So maybe in your case, if you guys were able to go back in time and speak to your younger selves when you're maybe about to start making Nana Pops at home for the first time, or maybe when you first had the idea of, hey, maybe we should start a business. What's one piece of advice about starting this business that you've now learned that you're like, hey, this is something I wish we knew at the very start?
Yeah, so honestly, like I would say passion is incredible, but you have to bring your, your brain along for the ride. And I think for us, we were just so excited. Man, this is a great product. It tastes great. People love it. We got excellent. Let's just do it. Let's just do it. Let's just go and start the store. And then when we wanted to get into consumer packaged goods, we said, look, people are asking for it. And so what I would say is, always take a step back. Passion is very important and definitely one of the main ingredients you need to start a business, and because that's what's going to keep you going on the hard days, right? The passion. But what I would tell my younger self is also couple that passion with reason, and take the time to research, find out. We went in, we're like, oh, we're gonna start making ice cream. Find out a little bit more about that category. What are the drivers for it? Who's your competition? And I know it right now for everybody, be like, that's basics, everybody. But no, once you've started working on your business, you're not going to have the luxury of research, time to research,
Yeah.
because you're already under the gun. You're like, I need to create the product. I need to put it on shelf. I've got overhead. So before you get to that point where you've made the commitment and now, you've got all these tasks that you have to get through with your business, take the time to do as much research as possible. And I would say, again, find out in our space, because that's where we play in food, find out more about your category. What are the drivers for it? Who's the competition? What's the pricing that's out there? You could have an incredible product, but once you're on a supermarket shelf next to 30, 40, 50 other products, there's a lot more that goes into play. Price, for example, we're in an economy where, a lot of people are struggling to put food on the table. And as a family, we feel that ourselves, like we've got kids, we want to put, and so when we go into a supermarket, we're looking for value. And so price is very important. And I think part of that is when you're really passionate about your business, you think people are just going to buy it because you're so passionate about it. No, there's a lot more that goes into it. People, they'll buy it if they can also afford it. And so find about the pricing, the category, do that research so that when you get in and you're, you have to make quick decisions on the spot, you've got that strong foundation that you've built from. We had to do it like on the go. Like we started approaching stores, and then, these big stores started taking us, and all of a sudden we're like, oh, we need to find out who our competition is. Like we would literally go pitch to a new retailer, and they would ask us to do a competitive analysis. And we're like, I guess we need to. So we'd go and do it, but we'd do it while we're running our business, and we're worrying about overhead and delivery. And so that's what I would say is passion is great, but couple it with reason and take your time. It's not about getting to shelf first. It's not about getting to market first. It's about getting there on a solid foundation where you've done that initial research and legwork that's going to help you make those decisions that you will quickly have to make, once you have started working on your business.
Yeah, no, that's a great piece of advice, and that's exactly why I like asking that question at the end, because I find it just perfectly, wraps up the episode. And yeah, unless there's anything else you guys would like to share, thank you so much, and what a story. I really appreciate you guys coming on for this episode.
Thank you. It's our pleasure. And yeah, no, we just want to thank you. This has been a, incredible experience. I mean, we we were fortunate enough to find out about your podcast when Adam, went on it, and it honestly, like, we're also very inspired by you. I mean, 170, this is the 177th
Yeah.
podcast you're doing. That shows commitment. It shows grit. I'm sure you've had,
And
your
passion.
and passion.
Like 177 people, and you ask them and you interview them. That's amazing.
So yeah, kudos to you. We also want to congratulate you on being so passionate and driven. And this was honestly like one of the most fun podcasts we've ever done. So you've definitely got lifetime listeners on board, and yeah, we look forward to seeing you grow and flourish as well.
Thank you so much. And yeah, that's it for today's episode, and stay tuned to next week. Thank you.